This is a show for grown-ups.
And they say bad words.
And they say bad words.
Say final warning.
Final warning.
Hello and welcome to A Pot of Blunders. My name is Nate Magnuski and I'm here with Mr. Ray. How are you doing, Ray?
I'm doing really good.
Excellent. Thank you so much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, no, thanks for having me.
First and foremost, what got you into game design? What changed you from just a player to someone who wanted to make things?
So what got me into it was a friend of mine was playtesting games for another creator of friend of mine, the Chaos Grenade, Ari Davis. So Russ needed a game playtested, and so a friend of mine was like, running a playtest, and I was like, wow, you could make your own games. You don't have to just play D&D. And they're like, yeah. So like I got really interested in that, and then I just got ideas in my head, and then like it just started rolling into creation.
You've got a bunch of games out and you seem to be coming out with more like every week. Let's talk about the first game you put out though. Tell me about Goons and Toyland.
So it is based off of Tunnel Goons, in which Nate Tring created. And he did a Goon Jam, I want to say in 2019. And a friend, same friend, Chaos Grenade, made Shroom Goons off of that. And it was like this really, really playful twist on kind of those old 80s cartoons like the Smurfs, only you were playing tiny mushrooms. And I just loved the idea of it, loved the world of it, and I wanted to give it my own little spin on things. And at the time I was really big into watching Toy Story and Nine, which is, in sort of the same genre.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do something like that. And so I created Goons in Toyland, kind of to like stand on its own, but also to work with Shroom Goons. And I got connected with a children's charity last year in May, and we sold an absurd amount of copies. I want to say it was at least 1,500. And yeah, just raising money for kids and families who had COVID at the time, and were kind of stuck in lockdown. And so we did that, and I had Shroom or Toy Goons already out, and I was just like, wow, this is something really great, something I believe in, and it's out there for the community.
Do you have any experience running games for kids or playing RPGs with kids?
Yeah, I have a niece and nephew who now my nephew's 14 and my niece she's 10 years old right now. I had to do the math in my head. And then I have my own daughter who's 12. So and I would babysit them, and I would just run like really simple like low-key games for them, and they seemed to really enjoy it. And I ran Goons and Toylands for them, and they were actually part of my playtest. So
you can't have a better playtest group than kids, because they come at things from such weird angles. They have such, like, in our adult brains, we're kind of fixated and fixed in how we're thinking. And like, if you have experience with RPGs, you know how they're supposed to go. Mm-hmm. Kids have no preconceived notions about this, and will take the toy and run with it. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's so cool. You'll never find a better source of just unbridled imagination.
Absolutely. Your next game is a little bit different than Goons in Toyland.
Yeah, I always like to joke that on the second step I always like turn things to 11. So Goons in Toyland is very kid focused, very friendly, and then I was like, okay, so what's something that's very personal to me, but it's like stories that I want to play. And I saw another jam that was going on Itch, and it was like Rise Up and Dethrone God jam or something, where it was like theme that you have to like take down God. I signed up for it, and this like I got started on the game, and it just kind of grew into something bigger than I expected. And I wound up not being able to submit it because I was just past the deadline. And so I finished it, but yeah, it's called Dethrone the Divine, and it is you play as some sort of god or archetype of some sort of divine, and you're kind of witnessing the world as it is, and you realize that there are gods in power who are just taking advantage of people. And so you're literally changing the world because you're going to hunt down these gods and remove them from the mortal plane, so to speak.
So is this system more for like short campaigns, long term, one shots?
It's actually kind of good for any kind of range. I know in the playtest, like it's a dice pool system, so it's really hard to say. It's really on the luck of the roll. And you can definitely take it for a longer campaign and get a lot out of it.
So I know Goons and Toyland was inspired by Toy Story and Nine.
Yeah, and Spiderwick Chronicles, like in kind of a way.
Right. Is Dethrone the Divine inspired by? When I was reading it earlier, I was thinking American Gods.
Yeah, that's absolutely where I took a lot from it. And I'm watching the show, which is great. I've read the book, and I've read Sandman, which is like kind of in the same vein.
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of that kind of interpretation of gods and just how to see them through that scope. And I was feeling like there's a lot of great ideas out there, but I wanted to do my own take on it. I wanted to see something more, and I'm really interested to see other people's takes.
What's the most surprising information you got from playtesting these games?
So, as far as a creator, I'm just kind of I learned a lot about like how people kind of think and just how much work goes into balancing games.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work people have already done to do like different equations, which are great. I can't listen to you right off the top of my head, but I talked to Chaos Grenade a lot about the games I make. He's kind of like my go-to. But on a GM side, whenever you're playtesting a game, it's kind of like the Wild West. And so you get people who have crazy ideas, and I'm personally a GM who likes to say yes to everything my players say. I'm like, you can try anything, and I'll come up with some sort of roll or check for it. And my playtesters really took me for my word, because I had one playtester who played a dragon who had been a god for the dinosaurs.
All right.
And over the eons they adapted to this new world, so their form has changed into a pigeon. And they were the patron god of the downtrodden, and one of their main followers was just a little old lady who liked to, feed the pigeons in the park. And so, in this playtest, I had some real estate developers who were trying to force her out of her house. And the player was like, I want to poop in their eyes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, it says I have a breath weapon. Can I use that, out of my posterior? And, little did they know I was coming up with a check out of my own posterior. So, but yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. I had one person do, they called their character Sir Kellyan Crop.
Okay.
And he was the god of the alien conspiracies. So that was fun. And then, I had people who played like classic takes. Like, I had somebody who played Puck from
Midsummer's Night Dream, and before that. Yeah.
That's I couldn't think of the name of it. Yeah.
We're on the same page tonight. It's okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it was really fun to see, such of a different takes of legacies, like one go off of each other. And then I had one person who played a god of super acids, which for one, I didn't even know super acids existed.
Nope.
Yeah, no, apparently they're the ones that are like at 1 or 0, if I remember my litmus scale. Yeah, it's like below that. It's like super like acidic. And yeah, no, they had a lot of fun with it. They were like burning through cars, and it was a lot of fun. It was interesting, but it was a lot of fun.
The game to me it's incredibly adaptive, and it seems almost like it could be like a superheroes game, but there's none of those endless tables and trappings and horrible character creation rules. It's very simple and streamlined.
Yeah, and that's a lot of what I like on the indie circuit, is a lot of the storyteller, or a lot of like open narrative, where everybody comes together and builds a world. As much as I like Pathfinder and Dungeons and Dragons, I really want to have my own stake in a world. Like, I've never played a game of D&D where they stayed like to the setting to the letter.
Right.
And so I'm like, if you're not going to bother with sticking to the setting, why not just go ahead and create your own world? Like, I understand, like, some people want to stick to modules and whatnot, and that's great. I completely understand. We get busy, and sometimes you just want to throw something together and play, which is another reason why I built the game the way it is. It's something that I want you to be able to throw together in like 15 minutes, and then you can play a one shot. You can like do a one shot that develops into a two shot that turns into a 2-year campaign. That's really what I was looking for.
I think you've achieved it. Let's talk about your Monster of the Week podcast for a second. It's a $2 creature feature, right?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Why Monster of the Week? What drove you to that system?
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out the best way to start this. So, Q Times, which puts out a lot of really great content, they did a very short run of Monster of the Week, and they called it like the pest control arc. And it had three main characters, later on 4, who first met at a hotel that like it had haunted vibes, but like I can't spoil it because you'll have to see it if you decide to watch it. But they ran this really like emotionally compelling arc, and it was like one of the first podcasts that I had ever listened to that was an actual play. And I really vibed with the Monster of the Week system. And pest control unfortunately ended. Well, fortunately, unfortunately, like it was a good stopping point for it. But I really wanted to like explore the world more, and I'd always had this idea in my head to do a podcast like going off of that. And so whenever I was doing Dethrone the Divine, some of my playtesters who were actually like who are my castmates, they were there, and like we played a few games together, and we had really great synergy and energy together. And so I just kind of like threw it out there. I was like, hey, what if we, I like the way you all play, and I think we could do something really cool with this. And 2 of them jumped at the idea, and one of them, she kind of, it was Laura. Laura kind of had to, she wanted to, but she wasn't quite sure, and somebody told her to go for it, and I'm eternally grateful because she plays Door, and Door is one of my favorite characters out of the 3. I mean, I like all of them, but Door's just, she's fun.
So I was listening to a couple episodes earlier in the week, and the show is great. It's just fun. The story is compelling, but the camaraderie and the charisma you all share with each other is really what drives me to keep listening. I think you're 5 episodes into it at this point that I published, that I've seen.
Well, we have 3 of the official like canon storyline, and then we have a bonus episode with Sam Richardson, who did the pest control for Q Times. So it's kind of a non-canon modern day. The podcast itself is set in the 60s for anybody who, but yeah, so we have 3 episodes that are out right now, and our editor, unfortunately, their computer started messing up and a lot of technical difficulties. They've sent it off, and it should be returning sometime. So we're hoping to get more episodes out soon, but in the meantime, we're doing kind of just one shots of different systems that, and we're taking on guests and just trying out different things.
That's a good way to spend the time, though. And
yeah, right now I believe we have 9 episodes recorded as of right now.
All right.
So yeah, we have a lot in the can that's like, getting ready. And we have a Discord that I was on there the other day, and I was talking like how, I already have 3 seasons of this planned out and plotted out loosely. So yeah, I'm really excited to get more into it.
Yeah, that's always the danger with the PBTA games, the Powered by the Apocalypse. It's nice to have the plans because you can see them just crumble around you as you play on.
yeah. That's why I keep things flexible. So I have a general idea is what I'm saying.
Perfect. So your latest game is another game that's inspired by popular media, right?
Yeah.
It's your WandaVision game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That game I wrote in about 2 hours. It's called Sitcom in the Suburbs. And I watched the first episode of WandaVision, and I was like, man, this is, I haven't seen anything. I mean, I've seen some things that are like it, but, not to this caliber. And I just wanted to jump on it, and I wanted to do a fun 1-page RPG that's just, you have people who may have certain kind of powers or abilities, and they're put into a setting they don't realistically belong in. And it's about them like trying to figure out what's going on.
So as a designer that borrows a lot from popular media, what are the potential pitfalls you see in doing this? Is there anything that you're like, is there any advice that you would give to a game designer looking to follow in your footsteps?
Oh, I would say absolutely be careful of what kind of media you kind of throw in with. And WandaVision was one I was a little leery of because you never know what's going to happen after everything's all said and done. But just be careful what kind of media you're out there supporting. I mean, especially in this day of age, because so many people are coming out with these pretty great pieces. Like forever Joss Whedon was being touted as such a great feminist and writing an interesting character like Buffy, and now it's starting to come out that he was not really a nice guy.
Yeah.
So I say be careful. I don't know how. I'm fully expecting somewhere down the road, something terrible is going to happen with mine. And I don't know what I'm going to do that day. I'm going to apologize profusely, probably, because that's just how I roll.
I mean, I think you're safe with Neil Gaiman. I don't think anything bad's going to happen there.
I hope not.
Yeah, let's knock on everything here.
Yeah.
Let's see. Toy Story, again, maybe Tim Allen, but I think you're good there too. I think you're safe.
Yeah. They
Nine.
recast him, so it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
WandaVision is over. People
Yeah.
seem to be okay with how it ended, kind of.
Yeah. I mean, whenever it comes to superheroes, nobody's going to be completely happy.
Yeah. How did you like it?
I really enjoyed it. My wife figured it out on the first episode. because one character came through and my wife's like, I bet that's such and such from Marvel Comics. And I was like, yeah, because we both are comics fans, but we enjoy separate parts of the universe. She enjoys some of the more magic and mutant side, and I like more of the cosmic and space stuff and Spider-Man. And so we have a lot of crossover, but then there's still a lot of stuff that she knows that I don't, and then there's stuff I know that she doesn't. So it's very interesting, but at the same time kind of frustrating that she was like, yeah, I bet that's so and so, and she was exactly right.
So whenever I interview guests, I always ask my kids to give me some questions to ask, and I'm always intrigued. Sometimes they like, leave me alone, Dad. But
I understand.
yeah, my youngest, he's 5. He had a question for you.
Okay.
So, now, granted, I didn't tell him anything about you except that you were a game designer. So
okay.
Just appreciate how left field this is. Can you make an ice dragon show up in your next game?
You know what? I will try. I will definitely try. Love dragons. I always have this personal mythology, like dragons in our world are the gods of the dinosaurs, because they have the best parts. They have the claws, they have the teeth, and they have wings, and and they breathe fire, which I imagine dinosaurs would have been terrified of.
Yeah.
So I always like to pull that into our world. And
I'm going to tell him that dragons are dinosaur gods and that you told me. He'll be very excited for the secret knowledge. Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before I let you go for the night, is there anything that you wish we had talked about that we didn't get a chance to speak about yet?
Well, my next projects, I'm working on a Western fantasy. So I'm mashing, fantasy of, like Dungeons and Dragons and such with, a Western kind of an alternate history of the world that I'm excited for, because it's my first like exclusively me system. I'm writing it with a buddy of mine that I've known since like the 4th grade. So we're excited to get it out, but it may take a little time. Who knows? Got to get a lot of sensitivity readers on it, just from the topic. And then I sent a thing out on Twitter today about, I really enjoyed writing sitcom in the suburbs, and I'm thinking about writing more one-page RPGs. And 5 people said, yeah, do it. So, that's all I need. I'm just going to go right into it.
Do you want to give any hints about what kind of RPGs you're working on for those one-pagers, or is it just a brand new goal and you're not sure yet?
Well, so I'm going to approach one-page RPGs kind of like one-shots, just because, they're nice to break things up like that.
Yeah.
The one I have in mind is going to be 3 Men and a Baby with a twist. So everybody's going to play supervillains, except for one of the supervillains, their sibling wants you to watch their kid while, they have to go to work. And so, but the supervillains are all behind on their rent. And so, they have to pull off a big caper, but there's a baby there. And the baby is going to have powers. So it's going to have a randomized table. So whenever you fail a roll, the baby is going to have some special power that just pops out of nowhere.
I will be your first customer for that, and I will play it on this podcast because that sounds like the exact game that we're after here.
All right. That
sounds awesome. So you now have 6 people saying to do this one-page RPG thing because I need you to make more of these things. Get weird with it. Just go for it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Never say no when you're a GM. Yeah.
That's excellent GM advice. You have been a delight, and I don't want to take up any more of your time, but thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Greetings from the world of tomorrow. So it's been about 6 months since we last spoke. Last I interviewed you for the podcast.
I was gonna say, yeah, no, it's not like we spoke, an hour or two ago on the Discord.
Right. So how you been?
I've been doing really well. I've been trying to think back because you asked me to come back, and I've been trying to think about like what did I talk about last time? Like where was my headspace? And I think that's whenever like $2 creature feature was just getting started and just getting going. And now I almost feel like, that was baby me 6 months ago.
Well, let's start there. How is it going?
It's going really well. We did unfortunately have one of our players left the podcast, and we kind of have a buffer of about like 5 or 6 episodes between that point and now. And so it like the episode hasn't come out, but they had to leave, and she's going on to do new projects and bigger things, and we're excited for that. But we've kind of decided that it doesn't feel right to continue on with the same storyline without her there. So we're just going to kind of do a soft reboot. Like we're still going to stay Monster of the Week, but we're finishing out like that first campaign with like just what would have been season 1. And then we have like a small like palette cleanser that we're doing, which is like just a few like guest GMs. And then I think I'm going to run some one shots and stuff. And then we're going to start up making a whole new campaign.
So really now's the perfect time to jump on board because you can catch up with the back catalog and get on the ground floor for the next.
Absolutely. Yeah. And we're going to be town building because a lot of the other Monster of the Week podcast, which at the time I hadn't heard very many more than just the one $2 creature feature is based off of, which is on Q Times' YouTube that Sam Richardson did. So I've listened to other ones because Sam's like, they just tour the country like in a pest control van, like as a cover. And I love it. It's a wonderful series. If anybody's out there who hasn't seen it, like go see it. It's a good like 16 hours of content, and it's fantastic. But other Monster of the Week podcasts like all set theirs in a single town and do stuff like that, and we're gonna kind of go with that next season. So I think I'm gonna borrow stuff from like Kids on Bikes has a really good town builder like session 0 stuff, and I think I'm gonna use that to kind of like build up like what our town's like, little mystery of the town as a character, along with where our characters are going to be in that. So we'll all be releasing that on the way. It's just stuff that's on the horizon right now.
Something to look forward to.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So in addition to you being incredibly busy with your podcast, you've also been like balls to the wall with game production in the past 6 months.
Yeah, I think I have doubled my inventory since we last spoke.
I think so. So last time we did have any like lengthy conversation about this, you had mentioned working on 3 Baddies and a Baby. That's been out for a long time now.
Yes. And it's honestly, it's probably one of my favorite things that I've made, just because it's a game that's built itself into like its own chaotic sense. And I ran a campaign of it, or not a campaign, but a one shot for Dungeons and Pop. I don't know if it's okay if I plug another podcast on here, but Dungeons and Pop, great group of folks. They asked me to come on. They like to do superhero stuff. And like, I've ran this game and people will say like, I want to play a super serious villain, or, I don't want to go like too funny with it. And then you get people who are like, yeah, I want to go ridiculous with it. And that's okay. Like, comedy really works if it's like a part like sharing of like, ridiculous characters, or, the quote unquote straight man who's just like has to deal with like this insanity. And whether you feed into it or if you just want to be like juxtaposed to it, it seems to work really well for either way you want to play it. And but like I've with this game in particular is whenever I started walking away from hit points as an idea. And so instead of like having to deal with dying or death or pain or what have you, you have to think more about like how situations get more challenging the more you fail.
It works perfectly. The Monday after my episode with you right now airs.
Okay.
I'm sure I
Okay.
can
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
that in a better, more clear way, but I won't. We're having our actual player through Baddies and a Baby come out.
Oh yeah. I am super excited about this. So that's something else that's happened in the past 6 months is whenever you first asked me on for an interview, I honestly hadn't heard of you all.
Mm-hmm.
And in that meantime, I've listened to all of your actual plays, which are all extremely hilarious. I love all of them. The Into the Lumberlands is one of my absolute favorites, along with the Christmas special you all did with the Santas is just had me rolling. But I also really liked your Fate of Cthulhu one too. Like it was a little more. It wasn't like just funny, like laughing off. It was like a serious one, and I thought you guys did mystery and horror really well as well.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So our actual play of Three Baddies and a Baby is not a serious adventure.
Okay, yeah. Yeah,
But
you've told me what they are heisting, but I don't know anything beyond that.
that's all you need. Yeah. I'll leave the rest of it as a mystery to our listeners for next week. So in addition to that wonderful game, you've also published Cults and Coles de Sac.
Yes, which I'm still on the fence about the name because I had lent it to you to edit, actually.
Yep.
And that was like one of the notes was like the plural of cul-de-sac isn't cul-de-sacs, it's coles de sac. And I was like, okay. And so I like did that and like published it. And then I looked it up and it's like, no, it's kind of flexible. It could be cul-de-sacs or cul-de-sac, whatever. I mean, it's one of these games. I kind of designed it as kind of a an ode to one of my players. Like he really Nye, he's also on $2 Creature Feature. He's one of those players who would rather talk his way out than fight his way out. And I was like, okay, this is kind of my design challenge because I usually like walk into a game with either like a really solid theme or a design challenge. And so for Colts and Cul-de-sacs, I wanted to make a game that wasn't combat orientated. So the roles and everything revolve around social interactions. Like, how do you deal with the problem? Are you going to be intimidating? Are you going to try to be charming? Are you going to use blackmail? The idea is you either play members of a cult or you're going to play members of the community who are trying to fight a cult. And it's all about the event that's coming. There is like some sort of eldritch horror god trying to come into our universe or make some kind of post-apocalyptic event. And the cult is trying to make this happen and they need to convince X amount of people to join in. Meanwhile, if you're a part of the cul-de-sac, like you're trying to convince people not to join this cult. So either way you want to play it, it's all revolving around this while like special events are happening. And I think I said it for like 2 weeks or something like that. And so like you're going to be at a soccer game and you're going to be like, oh, so have you thought about what you're doing next Saturday? You want to come to this gathering where we bring about, it's a fun little game, or like however you want to pitch it to somebody to join this underground cult. And it's just like, hey, if you bring like 5 friends, you'll get a cool t-shirt or just whatever. I haven't played it. I haven't test tried it, but it's one of those like I would love to give it a whirl just because it's a ridiculous idea and I'm all there for it.
It sounds awesome. I like the fact that it's such a short game. It's what is it, 1 page or is it a little bit longer than 1 page?
Yeah, I've only been releasing 1-page games. And
it's able to do both sides of the coin. Like you can be either the cultists or the people, and it works for both like equally well, which is impressive to do with such a short game.
Yeah, thank you. That's another thing I've been trying to challenge myself to do is like there was a point I was like, okay, I'm going to publish a 1-page game every month for the rest of the year. And as soon as I decided I was going to do that, it went out the window. Like my motivation just went. So, and it kind of like, that's like the game where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this once a month. And then I released it. And I don't like to think of success in terms of how well things are selling, but Colts and Cul-de-sacs is definitely one that did not sell well, which is okay. That's fine. But it's definitely one like I would love to play and try out. But yeah, it's definitely not on my favorites list. I'll admit that. And then let's see here. What have I done since? Oh, I think I did Ultra Fighting Teens Go. I think that's the name.
It is not.
It's not. Okay. Well,
it's
I know
Ultra Fighting Teen Heroes or Ultra Teen Fighting Heroes Go.
Yeah, Ultra Teen Fighting Heroes Go. I made it something long and ridiculous because that's the genre.
I love it so much.
Yeah. It's a Sentai game. And I mean, I think with a little tinkering, you could say it's a Magic Girl game as well, because the two genres are very linked, and some people even say they're the same thing. But yeah, it's a Sentai game. It's like Power Rangers or Beetleborgs or Kamen Rider.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I really love that kind of genre. I grew up loving the Beetleborgs. I didn't get to watch Power Rangers growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always just been fascinated by, this goofy concept of, you just transform into a hero with a little like device and you do kung fu or what have you. And, you just beat up the bad guys, foot soldiers, and then, there's a monster there that, you got to fight and sword beat. And then it turns into a giant monster and you got to jump into a mech and fight it.
It's perfect.
Yeah.
And again, it's you've nailed your design challenge where all of that fits on a page.
Yeah. It's all one page. Very simple like rule setup on that one. I think I did D10, and you have 15 points to set across 3 stats, which are, I think it's like your fighting ability, your wits, and your style. So you have those stats, you put the points in, and then you have to roll under the stat. And whenever you transform, like everything goes up like a point or 2. I can't remember right offhand.
It's okay. Buy the game, you'll find out at home.
Yeah, you'll find out whenever you get the game. But yeah, once you transform, you get like extra points. And then once you beat the monster, it grows big. And there's like a little thing about how everybody comes together. And you have a mech that merges together. And you combine everybody's stats. And then you roll a d20 instead of a d10. And so I feel kind of glad that I have kind of 2 different mechanics, even on a single page, for running games and characters. And everybody can have a turn like fighting as the mech. And it's one of those systems that I didn't really put HP into, because if you watch those shows, they really don't bother with HP. It's kind of dramatically like whatever works. And I'm finding I'm like really liking and enjoying and leaning that way as far as game design goes.
It makes life so much easier as a podcast, especially to have it just mechanics are divorced from it. They're only there for the fun of it and supporting the actual like randomization, but the end result of the narrative is totally within the conversation, within the story that you're creating collaboratively. That's wonderful.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was listening to Dungeons and Daddies today. They do a podcast supplement to the regular one called Talking Dads, and they were talking about how they're almost done with their first campaign or their first season or what have you. And they were talking about how like in the beginning, they sort of like just barely followed the rules, and they just kind of played it by ear. Like you have a druid who's like wild shaping, but he can still talk and cast spells, which they later on found out like, oh yeah, we can't really do that. But they had like a lot of fun with it. Like that, like fun always overrides like the actual like, crunchy mechanics and of it. And I'm always in favor of that.
Absolutely. So this isn't the last game you've made targeting those early 90s cartoons we all love, or kids shows, I should say.
Oh, no, definitely not.
You're working on one right now that is near and dear to both of our hearts. It's Sewers and Subways.
Yes. This one's been kind of on my back burner for a while. It was one of the first games that I started like working on. A buddy of mine who, like, we've been best friends since the 4th grade. He had a separate group, but he's the one who kind of introduced me to Monster of the Week and stuff. And he built this really cool game. He called it Bunkers and Badasses. And it's kind of a Mad Maxy, post-apocalyptic, got mutants running around, and you're just trying to survive. And it has like a lot of really good mechanics for like surviving for bullets and ammo and scrap and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, that's cool. What kind of mutants do you got? Because, I'm sitting here like, I want to play a giant shark person. And he's like, oh, no, not those kinds of mutants. Like, he's like, you could have like a third arm growing out of your stomach, or, getting into kind of more like the body horror kind of stuff of it. And I'm like, oh, well, that's cool in its, own way, but I want to be a shark. And so I started like making a little like expansion for his game on that. And keep in mind, like, he hasn't even finished his game, like he hasn't published it or anything. But I started working on it and I was like, oh, why do I have to set this in the post-apocalyptic world? I can do this in modern day and it still work. And so I've kind of expanded it more from there. And I've been tinkering on it ever since. And I've kind of made something a little bit different from what he originally set out to make, but like it's still like following the same kind of rules. It's really neat. It's a 2d6 system that uses damage die, kind of a lot like what's the game?
Like a Powered by the Apocalypse type thing?
Yeah, it's a Powered by the Apocalypse. It's their fantasy one.
Dungeon World?
Yeah, it's a lot like Dungeon World, and it still uses like same basic stats, like that are translatable to D&D, but like along with the 2d6, you also use like different damage dice. And so I've got something like that going on. But instead of like picking different moves, you have 3 archetypes or tropes. I still haven't decided on a name. And you kind of use those to build your character. You could be a tech guru, a driver, a criminal, kind of a hunter, a soldier, the leader of the group, a martial artist. I've got several of them, like a brute, pilot. But yeah, they're all different kind of nods to like the traditional archetypes that you see in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or the Street Sharks. So you got like the party dude, like, is one of them. And the party dude I'm really proud of, because it's one of those that can be really overpowered in the right hands, because it's got moves that, like, you know, if you say a quip line and everybody at the table laughs, you get a bonus on your next roll. But if you don't, then it really hurts you. Or there's one called like the Gallagher, like it references Gallagher, and as long as you're like have like a sledgehammer or a hammer, and or if you use a melon, like you get a bonus to that roll. It's just ridiculous stuff like that. I've kind of designed it to play campaigns, but you could also, like, I've ran it at conventions before and just like had people play through it with ridiculous results, and I've loved it. But whenever I took it there, it wasn't completely done. Like, there was just play tests to like give me notes to work on to go from there. So it's like all been like spread out in different documents, and for the past, since I think June, I've been trying to just organize it into one document and make it coherent. So whenever I keep talking about it, I know I've guest starred on your Patreon show, Jumping the Street Shark.
Yes.
And when I was on there, I was like, oh yeah, I'll definitely have this done by the time it comes out. So it is sitting somewhere done, and I'm using air quotes there, but it's just not coherent. Like, it makes sense to me. Like, if I'm running it, yeah, oh yeah, it makes complete sense. But for somebody to put it in somebody else's hands, I don't think it'd make a ton of sense.
Well, fans of this show will agree with me that coherence is widely overrated. I don't think we have to worry about that.
Yeah. I've honestly like really been considering pitching it to a few of the publishing companies. And because I had a friend who's recently done that, and I'm like, oh, okay, so it's doable. And like, I've been trying to get an idea of how many words I should have before I start marketing it. And my friend Ari Davis, who recently released Sigil and Shadow with Osprey,
right?
He was like, yeah, my game is 15,000 words. And I was like, cool. And so then I look at mine, that's, you know, almost 6,000. And I'm just like, so I would have to kind of like double everything that I have here.
Just fluff it out a little. It's fine. Do like the English class stuff, you know, a lot of semicolons, a lot of ands.
Yes. Just, there's a whole page in here that's just you quoting Shakespeare. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, it fits in. Tables. You can't go wrong with tables.
Yeah. Oh, there are so many tables in it already.
More tables.
Yes.
It's an OSR game.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and runs off to re-get it. No, it's got several tables to do like randomized like mutations and stuff. So if you don't know, like, going into it, like what kind of animal you want to be, like there's a table for that. And it's even got like 3 different ways you can approach that. You can build the character and then roll your mutation, like what your animal is. And that's for characters who like were human who got changed, like the Street Sharks.
Right.
And then there's the reverse of that. You can start off with your animal and build your character from there, which is like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Or you could just create your character and let your GM decide. And I feel like that's really like leaning into, you know, the evil genius who's behind everything. Personally, that's my favorite way of doing it, is just kind of Like, let's lead this to chaos. And I mean, you could even like put it up to the whole group and everybody could play the same animal, or you could all be different things. It's very flexible that way.
And I love it. And I need it. So chop chop.
I'm working as fast as I kind of want to.
I can't ask for anything more, you know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, this episode took 6 months to come out, so I really can't say shit.
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, it's one of those games, like, I really hope I can kind of market it to a bigger publisher. For one thing, because I want to get a lot of good art for this, or just art that's kind of like into the genre. Another thing is, like, it's a game that could easily be like have expansions like come out later for, because you know, you could take that post-apocalyptic idea and like do a setting for that along with archetypes that are appropriate for it, and then you could also do, you know, like a prehistoric like time jumping era kind of thing, so like Turtles in Time, but for this.
You are the unrivaled master of adapting popular media to small role-playing games.
Oh, thank you.
It's you.
I really appreciate that.
It's always been you.
It's me. I'm on the stage by myself.
Before I let you go for the day, evening, whatever time it is.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you want to let us know before you abandon us forever?
Be good to each other. Just be kind. I think we kind of got into this a little bit when I was last on here, and I was like stumbling through the somewhat coherent thoughts. But yeah, just don't be a douche. Get vaccinated. Just support the Pot of Blunders Patreon. Seriously, I'm one of the patrons, and like the Jumping the Street Sharks podcast is so funny and so good, and I look forward to it every time an episode comes out. Like, I usually watch it within a day or two. It's one of my favorite things right now, so I highly advise, like, go support it, even if you've never seen Street Sharks. Like, hearing like these two guys go after it and like listen to it and watch the show, like, it's, if you like Schadenfreude, it's great. Seriously,
we're never escaping the Street Sharks. We have to watch all 40 episodes. And
yep, and Extreme Dinosaurs.
Yeah, well, that might be up. I was toying with the idea of doing the Wild West Cowboys of Moo Mesa.
That's really good too. I know my wife would be a big fan of that. So,
well, I'll share the episode that's coming out this Thursday with her, because I know we only did one episode for September, and I felt bad about that. So
awesome. I will be sure to send it to her. I'll just be like, hey, check this out.
It's rough.
Oh, I know. I'm sure. But awesome.
Thank you so much for coming back on the show and updating us on your progress with everything.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me. Love being here.
And yeah, well, I'll talk to you on the Discord later on today, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll talk to you next time.
I'll see you in 6 months, Mr. Ray. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, folks. It's your old pal, Nate. I want to thank Mr. Ray again for coming on the show twice now. Well, 3 times if you count our Street Sharks episode, and telling us about his amazing games, his amazing podcast, and his amazingness. He's just a cool dude. You can come hang out with him and us on our Discord anytime you want. And make sure you follow all the links in the show notes to his podcast, to his games, and to his wonderful suggestion of supporting us on Patreon. You can also support us by leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. And it seems like such a little thing, but it really, really does help us reach a wider audience. If you do this, shoot me an email at potofblunders@gmail.com. Let me know, and I'll make sure I read your review on the air. Unless it's mean, because I'm very sensitive and I don't handle criticism well. So thanks again to Mr. Ray, and thanks to all of you for listening. For the Pot of Blunders, I've been Nate Magnuski, and as always, may all your Ds be 12s.